what are the differences between different psychedelics or like dreams? Like, is it like completely different realms? Like, how can we try and have a sort of taxonomy for thinking about these kinds of things?
Well, yeah, the first thing to say is, there's a broad range of psychedelic experiences, as there is a broad range of, prosaic, normal experiences, as it were. So it's hard to generalize, but, there have been attempts to. I think there are taxonomies emerging. There's this, James Sanders and others are working on microphenomenology of psychedelic states, so that's really trying to get the details of what really happened, and if you can say I became one with God or something, but what does that really mean? What did you really feel? So there is a lot of interesting work on this taxonomy of psychedelic phenomenology at the moment. I would say also different. There's a lot of variables. So the classic one, set and setting. So if you're in a you should always be in a good mindset and a safe, comfortable setting, they say, but setting seems to and set, your memories, your lifestyle seems to impact the experience itself. So interesting how a lot of memories which maybe you thought were lost seem to flood back during psychedelics. This is the basis of a lot of the psychedelic therapy as well, like bringing back traumatic instance from childhood and so on. That's also interesting metaphysically, because someone like Bergson, for example, one of his radical claims is that memory's never lost, just access to it is lost. But so yeah, like bringing back, past memories, similar to, what's it called, panoramic memory, through near-death experiences where you see your whole life flash before your eyes. This can happen. There's a number of reports of that. That's one form. There are other forms such as so many different forms. Yeah. A lot of visual forms, a lot of repeated patterns, and so on. There are types which completely differ from anything visual. So, like with 5-MeO-DMT, for example, you'll have an experience which starts with a white light, but then becomes completely nonsensible. And I mean sensual, no senses involved, no colours or anything like that. Maybe it's not sensible to take it either. That's another meaning. But yeah, so you get, and also the sense of time stops. This is why I took it actually once, because I was interested in that. And then even at high doses of LSD, you'll get very different sort of experiences to low doses. So that's another variable, the dosage. So you've got all these variables: setting, type of substance. You've got dose of substance. Maybe people from different cultures will experience, with all of that, they'll still have very different experiences. So this is the argument from contextualism, that your cultural context determines your actual experience, not just the interpretation of it. There's a really interesting debate at the moment, which has been reignited, as it were, with the psychedelic renaissance 10 years ago. There was a debate in mysticism studies before that. So the other view is that, like from William James Huxley, people like this, perennialism, which is the view that a so-called core peak experience, such an experience will be the same, qualitatively identical throughout cultures and times and places. Perennialism. This is the opposite then of contextualism, and this debate continues, and it's very interesting. I take a middle path myself. What else can I say about psychedelic experiences? I mean, time and space, they distort. Time can slow down. Speech at the present moment can seem to extend. Time can speed up. Space, there are reports of seeing space of more than 3 dimensions, especially through DMT. Yeah, so, I mean, I really can't do justice to the full array of experiences. But, they're not just simply like kaleidoscopic colours. That's part of it. That's kind of an annoying part. You want to move fast, It's like, there's an aesthetics to it, but there's much more than that. There's also feelings of, different kinds of feelings that you've never had, and affinities with nature connectedness, very common. All of which is, pretty to work on, I think with philosophers, phenomenologists, because like I said at the beginning of this talk, it was an unfortunate timing that psychedelics became popular in the 60s when reductivism was not interested in consciousness at all, let alone psychedelic consciousness.
There's a couple of fascinating things there I want to pick up on. I mean, one is that different like cultures might experience, say, the same substance differently. I mean, think about like what people hear about psychedelics, like, oh, this is going to be really dangerous, or no, this is going to be great, and like, yeah, that must surely change things. And even like, you know, contemporary scientific theories in cognitive science about expectations and bringing in top-down models. I mean, that too, and it must. I mean, as well, like, it's fascinating that I often think about in everyday life. I mean, it's not that everyday life is boring, but you realize you're doing very similar things, you know, all the time. And so, you know, even like one psychedelic experience is going to like completely change what you kind of think is possible. And that just makes me kind of want to ask, you know, there is these wide range of experiences, you know, who, if anyone like should be taking them, like is it like beneficial? What kinds of experiences, and maybe is that even the wrong term? Is that too utilitarian? Like, this substance is beneficial and this substance isn't, you know?
Well, you know, at the moment, it seems to me, some people disagree with this, but it seems to me that the only way to make psychedelic substances legal is to go through the medical framework at the moment, you know, because it seems unethical to stop, you know, trying to help people. But I see that as important. It helps. I think it can help people. But after that, I think there are greater uses still. You know, it's not just for the unhealthy. Scare quotes. How can it help? How does it help people? What was your question, sir? How does it help?
Yeah,
people?
how does it, like, I mean, obviously it's interesting you bring up that medical. Obviously there are people like trying to go, okay, you have this specific medical ailment, but as you say, like, I would love to get into like ways in which beyond that, in some future where it's not just like medical treatments. Yeah, right. What ways do you envisage that these substances might benefit us, change us?
I mean, you know, I always think about the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece, which were sort of like, you know, the most established of the mystery cults in ancient Greece. The Eleusinian mysteries lasted 2,000 years, you know, longer than Christianity really at the moment. And they were, now it's not absolute, there's no hard evidence that people took psychedelics in these mysteries, although there's some evidence actually from Spain recently. But they took a potion and they entered a darkened temple, and they certainly had, it seems, what we would define as a mystical experience, however it was occasioned. And this wasn't to cure people, you know, it wasn't for the sick, it was for everyone. You know, people believe that all Athenians went there, including the great philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, and so on. So why? Because it seems, although it was forbidden to speak about the mysteries, so we don't know too much about them, it seems like one of the reasons was to cure the fear of death. I suppose that is kind of like helping a kind of ailment we all have, like thanatophobia, I think it's called, the fear of death. Well, that's one thing. So I think that psychedelics could be used for end-of-life care, for example. I mean, there's experiments on that already. I guess that's still therapy, though, isn't it? I think beyond that, I mean, you can only speculate here, but it would be, you know, if you look at like Santa Daime, these Native American churches generally, you know, their purpose is not therapy so much. It's like a greater, let's just say, to generalize, like an enrichment of life. So, you know, you don't have to go to musical concerts, you don't have to listen to music, but if you do, it enriches your life. Same with psychedelics, I think, you know, it can give you different insights into yourself, into the world, different ways of thinking, even if it is delusion, like at least even if it is cool, complete hallucination, still it enriches your life, just like dreams do, you know, just like music does. You know, we don't say that, well, music is not factual, so therefore what's the value in it? You know, it has a different kind of value. Psychedelics do as well. Also, yeah, and so I think that, you know, one could foresee a future where psychedelics are used as a kind of institutional, as an institute, really, a bit like the mysteries, to just provide, to enrich people's lives, to make them see the world in different ways. In other words, not to sort of take people away from dogmatism, perhaps, and you know, allow people to experience more of reality than they otherwise would. Because, you know, although the veridicality is at question with a lot of these psychedelic experiences, the objective truth of what is seen, the actual experience is real. And, in other words, it happens. And some people experiencing that, you can get a lot out of it just through that. I should add a warning, though. It's not for everyone, really. So there are reports, there are many, bad trips that happen as well. People get very anxious. For example, I've got a lot of Gothic imagery, like satanic stuff, which I'm fine with, but I think a lot of people wouldn't be. I've heard of horrific incidents, for example, where people think they're in a void of nothingness infinitely and they will never escape. Things like that, can't be good for you, really.
Yeah.
So that, it comes with a warning. So there are basically you can get extreme experiences, and generally I think most people get a lot out of them, just like fascination for a start, if not self-therapy. But there's a dark side to them as well, strangely. Just like with dreams, there are also nightmares, which are rarer, but they happen.